Hello friends, and welcome to another very belated video from my series Quick Thoughts On, in which I always talk about different stories from the rich Star Trek universe. 30 years and a bunch of weeks, or in this point months ago, the next episode of Star Trek The Next Generation premiered. It was called Peak Performance, and these are my honest opinions about it. War games. This is something what we haven't seen before on The Next Generation. Thanks to the relatively recent encounter with the Borg, Captain Picard has agreed to take the Enterprise into a battle simulation. The simulation itself was prepared by Zach Dorn, tactician named Kolrami, who looks like his face is melting, and he is supposed to be an asshole. One of the many problems of this episode is that everybody in this episode is an asshole, including our heroes. The plan is that Commander Riker and his crew will command an 80-years-old ship, the USS Hathaway. Excuse me, I have a question. Why is an 80-years-old ship in space? How did it get there? Was it just abandoned and left in space, or how did it get there since it doesn't have a working warp drive anymore? Or did some other starship pull it there, or was it fully working and somebody else destroyed it for this simulation? Anyway, Riker puts together a team consisting of Geordi, Worf and Wesley Crusher, plus a bunch of unnamed officers, but before the simulation starts, Riker challenges Kolrami to a game called Stratagema. Why? Kolrami is the third level Grandmaster. What is that and why should I care? And Riker, who hasn't played the game before, wants to challenge him. Why? Is he a masochist? Does he like to get humiliated? Kolrami thinks it's funny, so they have a little match in 10 forward. Now, another important question is, what exactly is Stratagema? Because I have no clue. Both of them put some things on their fingers, things which look like they are supposed to be used to milk a cow, and then they move the fingers in the air and a 3D picture of something is shown between them. I hate to repeat myself, but what is going on and why should I care? And what a surprise! Riker, who doesn't know how to play the game properly, loses with the third level Grandmaster. But why is he sad? He did not expect any other result. When they finally meet the Hathaway, they have 48 hours to make the ship functional. It's of course a redress of the bridge set from the USS Enterprise used in the first 6 movies, and it's more than obvious, but the main thing is that the ship is a mess and nothing is working. They don't even have warp because they don't have any antimatter. Wouldn't it make more sense to give them a ship on which they would have at least a slight chance to win? And wasn't the whole reason for this war game to learn something which they can use against the Borg? What can they learn on a ship in this condition? How to look attractive while you're being assimilated? So they're supposed to improvise, right? So Wesley improvises. He asks to be transported back to the Enterprise because he forgot to take care of a critical experiment. He gets a personal guide who behaves like he thinks that they are surrounded by invisible snipers and he has to protect Wesley with his body. Again, why? Then Wesley pretends that his experiment is damaged and that he needs to beam it into space, and the guard is perfectly fine with it. He doesn't even question it. So why is he there if he believes everything that Wesley does? And he of course beams the ball with his experiment directly to Geordi, because of course the guard didn't check the coordinates. Why was he in the scene when he didn't have absolutely any effect to the outcome of the scene? Dr. Pulaski has challenged Kolrami in Data's name, because the Starfleet officers are very moral and this is what moral people do. But what a surprise, Data loses too. Everybody is shocked, including Data himself. Okay, this was the second Stratagema scene, and this wasn't completely pointless, because Data now has to deal with the fact that he can make mistakes. He removes himself from duty without talking to the captain about it, and I will assume that this is a normal thing which officers can do. Deanna tries to talk to him, but she doesn't really know how to deal with a computer brain, with a creature who claims not having any emotions or ego. So Dr. Pulaski tries it too. She tries something much more aggressive, but even she has no success. Meanwhile, on the Hathaway, Riker walks in on Wesley and Geordi hooking Wesley's experiment to the warp drive. The thing is that this experiment contains antimatter because, of course, a school project has access to antimatter, and Riker, who told his crew that they have to improvise, is mad that Wesley was cheating. So what, you want him to improvise or not? You didn't tell him that they are not supposed to cheat. And again, wasn't the main reason for the simulation to learn how to deal with the Borg and similar things, and to do everything what's necessary to at least survive? Thankfully, he agrees to keep it, but they still will have warp for only 2 seconds. Picard talks to Data, explaining him that it's human to don't make any mistakes and still lose, so this one scene was the whole sole reason for the whole game subplot. That's such a weird storyline. But finally, the good part of the story begins, the actual battle simulation. The real weapons have been unplugged, so all of the shots are just simulated. The Enterprise starts attacking the Hathaway, but suddenly their sensors report that a Romulan ship is attacking them. However, this is just a trick. Worf has somehow remotely reprogrammed the Enterprise sensors. Okay, he had access to the main computer, so I'll buy it. Then later the sensors report a Ferengi ship. Picard ignores it, thinking that it's just another Klingon trap, but this time the ship starts to fire at them. The Ferengi attack is real, and the Ferengi are confused why the Enterprise was first trying to attack the Hathaway, and now is trying to protect them. In their minds, the only possibility is that the Hathaway has something valuable on it, which means that the Ferengi want it too. Picard calls up a meeting, and they end up with a plan. They will shoot photon torpedoes at the Hathaway, and in that exact moment, the Hathaway will jump to warp, which from the Ferengi point of view will look like the big ship destroyed the small ship, and that the human captain is such a badass that he will rather destroy the treasure than give it to the Ferengi, and that's exactly what happened. Plus, the Ferengi sensors have suddenly reported that a Federation warship is heading towards them, so they warped away as quickly as possible. But, of course, that was also just one of Worf's illusions. I'm sorry, but how did Worf do it? I can accept that he could reprogram the Enterprise computer, but how the hell could he reprogram, especially remotely, and within a few minutes, the computer on the Ferengi ship? Anyway, the story ends with Data playing with Kolrami again, but this time Kolrami gives up and stops playing. So let's pretend that Data won. The thing is that Data changed his strategy. He didn't try to win, he went for a stalemate. He only reacted to Kolrami's moves, so in theory, they could play forever. Okay, this episode is a mess. A big mess. Things just happen because the script needs it. The script is filled with boring padding, and what should be the main story takes place in the last 10 or so minutes. I have not spoken about so many different weird things. For example, the woman who shares scenes on the Hathaway bridge with Worf and Riker. She's probably the worst actress who ever appeared on Star Trek. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just watch her performance anytime she's on screen. I have no clue whose relative she is, but there is no way she went through some audition. She looks like she's on drugs or something. Or the weird dialogue. For example, when Picard tells Kolrami that Starfleet is not a military, even though it clearly is a form of a military organization. Or when Riker tells Kolrami that he doesn't care about tactics because he prefers brains over brawn, which is tactics, so he doesn't care for tactics because he prefers tactics or something like that. I don't know, it's very confusing what we were trying to say with that. The stratagema part is just weird. They hype it up but don't even try to tell us the rules. I know that the original series had 3D chess, but we at least have an idea what the rules were, because it's just a 3D version of chess, and we all know chess. Maybe there are people who liked it, but if I don't understand what's going on, I get bored very quickly. I love the premise of the episode, the idea of war games sounds very interesting, and I love the actual war game part of the episode. So the beginning is great, the ending is great, but the middle, that's just weird and boring. On my overall scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is complete garbage, 10 is a masterpiece, and 5 is just average, I would give this episode 6 out of 10. Great idea, but not a great execution, but still better than the next episode. The next video will be probably the shortest video I will ever do, because what is there to say about Shades of Grey except for it's boring? But as many of you know, a new short trick has premiered. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm trying to get it. So maybe my next video will be about the next short track, I don't know yet, but thank you very much for watching and see you in a couple of days. Bye.